You're listening to Some Roses Are Red, presented by 79.7.
Welcome to Some Roses Are Red. Again, this is John, the host of Some Roses Are Red, and today, not in our studios, we're actually communicating through Skype while she's out of state. I believe you're still in Texas now, correct? Yep. So Fort Worth, Texas. Now we're speaking to Dr. Alice Johnson here, and I'm extremely, extremely happy that she decided to come on the program, so to speak, to talk to us. To talk with us, rather, we'll say, to give us some insight on some things for today's episode, which is going to be entitled, if you had to give it a title, today's title would be The Value of the Collective and Changing Your Inner Monologue. I know previously in February or some parts of January, we did speak about the inner monologue and the importance of having an internal conversation with yourself that helps build you to the outside world and also helps you achieve and attack your goals. So I think that Dr. Johnson here, a fantastic voice of input and also a voice of experience on both of those topics here. And I wrote a little reason because I like to have reasons because I give you a snippet into my mindset as to why do I have the people on the show that I do have on the show. So for Dr. Johnson, the reason that one of the many reasons, because like I said, the people that I invite on here, we vibe on a bunch of different levels, not just because I know them personally, but because I like what they stand for in and of, apart from the way that I know them. So for Dr. Johnson here, I wrote down here, what's the reason that I invited her on the program specifically? And it was I can remember her tenacity specifically during the process of achieving her PhD, which she got kind of recently, last 5 years, I believe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
So I remember the process and her hopefulness throughout the process. I remember her posting, and this is all through Facebook, posting on Facebook how she was at some points was a little harder than others, but she was very tenacious about it, very, very ambitious about this was what she wanted, and she was very tenacious, like I said, about attacking that goal. I wrote that she was very faithful in her process to that goal and also to God during that time, because I remember she was posting lots of encouraging scriptures and things around that time to encourage other people, but also to encourage herself to some degree here. And it was very hard work. I can trust. As a person who only has a high school education, I know that college is a push and graduate is a push, and even beyond it is even bigger push here. So I applauded her for that. I said, well, I want to talk to Dr. Johnson, to find out more about that push here. And I also saw here on her Facebook page her constant encouragement of her biological children, as well as the many other students that she taught and mentored during her time here in Milwaukee here. So I'm like, if you got to talk to people and these are the people that are in your circle, that's a blessing to have these phenomenal people that you can actually speak with here. So the first thing I wanted to not bring up, but to quote was a quote that she actually posted on her page today, and I believe it was from a church sermon that I thought, I'm like, man, I like that. So I like to in my extensive research, Facebook stalking, I find lots of information about people, and the quote that I found today on the page was, every time I pushed past my imaginary borders, I found amazing blessings, and it was encouraging people to push. And I'm like, I was just writing about Dr. Johnson and her push. So what an apt quote to have for the program as well here. So, like I said in some of the previous programs, I'm not a big fan of doing bios because I think if you ask for a bio ahead of time, you may get a good one or you may just get a bunch of fluff. So I like to ask people just pretty much right on the spot because it kind of gets them who they are. Right. So,
wow.
So I'd like to ask, right. So I'd like to ask for the first unofficial question, if you will. Dr. Johnson, who are you in regard to your day-to-day, and this could be personal life or career? What do you do for your day-to-day?
My day-to-day, wow. Every day is a different day. Every day is a different day. If I had to say who I am today, I would have to say that I'm just walking in God's blessings, and I'm walking out what He has called me to do. What does that mean? It means that in my professional life, I am an owner of a learning center, a tutoring center. I am a supervisor of a team of about 6 people in an educational research project. I am a mother.
Okay.
4 adult children, and wow, that's a learning experience in and of itself.
Right.
I'm a wife, and I'm a student of life. I think that's the best way to say it. Student of life.
Okay, I could definitely vibe with that because I remember when I was in elementary school, there was a assembly where the principal told everybody that you'll never stop learning. And I remember being so upset about that because I was equated that like I didn't like school. I don't want to always have to always go to school. But as I got older, I understood what he meant. And you truly do never stop learning. For those who are, I say the wise people never stop learning. If you shut your mind off to learning new things, I think you stunt yourself intellectually, and I would even go far as to say emotionally. You stunt yourself. You don't learn the things that make you human, and you don't learn the things about other people that make them human, and what makes us kindred spirits, or even the things that you may or may not like, things to try. So I can definitely agree. I can agree with you definitely on that. Here, so for our icebreaker question, this is our icebreaker question. And usually I try to keep these as random as possible because it kind of gets people, ready to delve into the bigger topics that we'll talk about today.
Okay.
So your icebreaker question today that I have, Dr. Johnson, if you could talk to any world leader or political figure throughout history and from any country, and you could only ask them one question, who would you talk to and what would you ask them? So any political figure or world leader from any time, from the beginning of time until this very day, if you could ask them one singular question, what would you ask them and who would you talk to?
Political or world leader. I've always wanted to meet Barack Obama. Okay. Even before he became president of the United States.
Okay.
Because I knew that him wanting or aspiring to be the president of the United States took a lot of tenacity, a lot of belief in himself.
Yep.
And so I wanted to talk to him when he was Senator Barack Obama, but oh my goodness, I'd like to talk to him now as former President Barack Obama.
Oh yeah.
And what would I ask him? What did it take every day?
Yeah.
What did it take to get up and be you?
Yeah.
And what would you say to anybody who is trying to achieve a goal like the one you had to achieve? In some ways, not to become president, but to do something that nobody else like you has done before.
Right. That had to be a monumental task too. Because even thinking about it, I was speaking because every first and third Monday of each month, I do like Facebook Live, where I do like about a Facebook Live and YouTube Live, where I do about an hour, and we discuss a number of things, kind of in line with whatever the topic is for that month. And for this last month, we were talking about just people who have input on like goals and stuff like that. And I said sometimes it's difficult because people, being well-meaning as they intend to, oftentimes can project their fears onto you, not intentionally, but they project their fears onto you, like, oh, I wouldn't do this, not because they don't believe that you should do it, but because they know how afraid that they would be. And I thought of immediately Barack Obama in that regard, because if I were a friend of his and he would said, I'm thinking about running for president, I might have been one to say, whoa, I don't know about that. Because, and I remember watching a program where Barack was talking about that, and he was talking, I forget who he was speaking with, but he was saying, why not now? If not now, then when? And I'm like, well, I don't have a good answer for that. So I think that it's unfortunate that we, being as well-meaning and having the best intentions for each other, sometimes can react from our own personal fears and kind of project that on other people. So I'm like, exactly. Yeah, that would be a great person to talk to, especially about that, your fears about
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, see, I told you. People you vibe with, people who have good what I like to say, good spirits, we'll say. People that can have a dialogue. And like I said, we may or may not agree on absolutely everything, but we can at least come to a dialogue where we can understand where the other person is, and that's all we really want. That's all communication is. That's all effective communication is.
Exactly.
Right. All right, so let's get to like I said, our topic for today is going to be, loose topic, we'll say, would be the value of the collective and changing your inner monologue. The inner monologue. Here we're speaking again to Dr. Alice Johnson here, and I got two scriptures here. Not that I always use scriptures to to expound on what the point was, but if it fits, it fits. So we got Proverbs 19:20, which says, "Listen to advice and accept instruction, that you may gain wisdom in the future." And again, we're talking about the collective. So this is listen to advice, and if you go further in that scripture, it talks about wise advice, which is good because you have to discern between just random talks and wise advice here. And the second scripture is Proverbs 1:5, and that says, "Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance," which is interesting because once you have understanding, you don't just go out and do everything. I found we're talking about a different friend of mine. We were talking about what is true freedom, and we said true freedom is two different things that I believe. It is having options and having self-discipline. If you don't have self-discipline and you don't have the options and you don't know how to, if it's kind of like if you give a person $1 million tomorrow, many people will lose that by Friday. So if you don't have, you can have options, but you must have self-discipline with those options here. So those two scriptures here. First question, official question here is going to be, let's see what we got here. Believing that success is not a static concept, and that we redefine it as we mature and have life experiences, of course. How did you define success as a young adult? And we'll give it a parameter rather of we'll say from 13 to 19. How did you define success? What was success to you at those ages?
Success to me from 13 to 19 was being a CEO of a company and making millions of dollars. And that's the reality because that's what I was sold.
Right.
I mean, it was you go to college, you get this great job, or you become this amazing CEO and you go into corporate America and you just make all this money and now you're successful.
Right. And it works out just like that.
It's just not. You have to get straight A's in school and you become a CEO.
Right. I agree. That's what people get sold. Yeah, that is definitely the truth. And the second part of that question, I'm sorry, I should have told you it was a two-parter for that one.
Okay.
And the second part of that, because like I said, success is not a static concept. How would you define success now in its simplest form?
In its simplest form, waking up every day and being excited to jump out of the bed, to do whatever it is you have to do, or whatever it is you're going to do. That's success.
I would definitely agree with you there, because if everything else is just busy work, I would say if you haven't found something that makes you excited for your feet to hit the floor each morning, I think that you just got into busy work. So I would agree with your definition of success here. So this one, because I've known Alice for Dr. Johnson rather, I'm sorry, for many years, probably since I was like 9 or so.
Yeah, we were really little.
Right, so about that age here. So just to get people kind of more familiar with you, I know you said that you were married. I remember that, and that you have 4 adult children now. So if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about tell the people a little bit. I already know about your family birth order. Are you only child? Are you one of many? What's your birth order story?
My birth order story. So I was my mom's only child, and my mom and I were. That was it. That was all the family I knew growing up for the most part. If I can be blatantly honest, my dad was not around growing up. There was, I hate to say it, the typical Black child story where, dad is out there somewhere. We make connections. We don't connect.
Right.
If I can be blatantly honest, at that time, the only time I really heard from my dad in my teenage years was when I was in trouble and my mom needed somebody to get me straight.
Right.
But my mom passed away when she was 45 and I was 27 years old. And I realized that if I did not heal the relationship with my father, that I would just be out there, I would just be out there. If anybody's lost a parent, how it feels, even if you're an adult, to feel like an orphan, like you're not connected to somebody, especially with the kind of relationship my mom and I had. We were so close.
Right.
That, not having her was like losing a part of myself. So when I I had already talked to a few of my siblings on different occasions. I had connected with the siblings that I had with my father, but we never really had a close relationship. But once my mom passed away, they sort of wrapped their arms around me. My dad and I came together and the healing began. And I can tell you that the healing from the time that we decided to say, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry, and maybe I wasn't right, and maybe I wasn't right, that has lasted up even through probably 2-3 years ago. I mean, it's just taken over the course of time. Yes, we've loved each other, and yes, we've been in each other's presence, but to really voice how you felt growing up or how he felt about me when I was growing up, and to just really get it out there, it has taken over the course of years. Now, my relationship with my dad is unbreakable.
Okay.
Unbreakable. But as far as my family life, again, if I'm going to be honest, I'm just a real person.
Okay.
I've been married a couple of times. And all of this works together for your good, but you don't see it in advance.
Right.
But I've been married a couple of times, and I do have 4 children. But through the process, I guess I can say in all of my bad times in life, I've learned, and it's helped me to become who I am today, somebody I'm proud to be. But my kids are 27, 22, 20, and 18.
Okay.
And they are some amazing adults. Are they doing like amazing, like, oh my God, amazing things? No, but the kind of conversations that we sit down and have on a week-to-week basis just make me proud to be their mom.
Okay, I can get with that. I once heard a person say that you can gauge the intellect of a person not necessarily by what they do, but by the questions they ask. Because intelligent people often seek answers for deeper questions than the surface things. So you can gauge where a person's coming from by the questions they ask. So I can definitely see where that would make me very proud of my son. We're asking intelligent questions because you can tell where a person's mind is going from that point. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. And when you're talking there, I'm like, oh man, I'm kicking myself because I'm like, I know I'm going to have Dr. Johnson back many, many times to talk about. So I'm like, man, how do I stay on topic here? Because there's so much that we can talk about, but I definitely, I just put a pin in like 3 or 4 other dates and other topics that I will probably be contacting you about. So that's dope. So now you got a brief snapshot into Dr. Johnson's family birth order here. So let's go a little bit further here. On that same topic again, we're talking about the value of the collective here. So the third question here that we're on. Many families have value systems which may or may not be representative of the surrounding culture. If there were a definitive African American culture to speak of, which of the following 3 choices, in order if you wouldn't mind, were seemingly the most important in your household as a youth? And we'll use that 13 to 19 age range here. So of these 3, in order for you: education, employment, and with employment having a good job, and religion, having a relationship with God.
Education was always number 1.
Uh-huh.
And then I think it was the relationship with God being number 2, and then employment number 3.
Okay.
If we think about 13 to 19.
Yeah, from that age range. And the reason I thought of that question is I have conversations with people about different things just because I like to know where people are coming from. And I remember growing up, like, it's funny because in a lot of families of color, I don't know necessarily if it's the same thing for my white counterparts here, but for families of color, if it's not education, it's usually employment. They want you to get a good job, Good job. And for the longest time, I didn't understand. But if historically, if you can go back, if you can get a good job. Since educational opportunities weren't necessarily viable for African Americans, even jobs weren't that viable. So if you can at least achieve one of those plateaus, you would put yourself in a better standing for not just your life, but for your family. So I like to ask people what was the message going on? Because in my household, I would say that education was important, but it was almost on the same tier as employment. And I think the reason for that was that during the era that my grandmother and grandfather grew up in, that was that, WW2, World War II, where everybody get out to work and, get out to work. So work was very important. Everybody made the mass exodus from the South up to the northern states. So that same mentality trickles down to families. So I think that work ethic was very huge. So it's I picked those three. And I figured that would be kind of similar there. So we probably have the same, education. Education, having a relationship with God, that was key. That was almost kind of like you have to, even if you did, you have to.
Required.
So, right. So, and then I have the next question as a part of that one, although a separate question here. Of those same three previous choices, education, employment, and religion, what would the order be in your household today if you had to place those three in a particular order for your own household now?
God first.
Okay.
God first.
Yeah.
Then the other two are debatable. Isn't that shocking from an educator?
Right.
And the reason why I say they are debatable, because as much as I think that education is important, not that I think that not that I see employment as any more that I see employment as a job. I also see employment as a business. I also see employment as your venture in life. So I think that I would kind of put the two hand in hand. And I would say that sometimes in order to strike out on your own, or in order to get the kind of employment that you want, you can use education as a tool. And if I can expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think that education, going out to go to a school to get a degree, is what makes you get a better job. In some cases, maybe you're working a job and the job says you've got to get a degree in order to move up in this company. But what I'm always telling my students, I forgot to say I'm also a college professor. Okay. What I often tell my students is this: every project, every paper, every class discussion should have you writing two sets of notes. One set of notes about what it is that the person is talking about, and then in the margin, what it makes you think of or come up with as a result. So, for example, a teacher said they want you to explore a career. Well, in exploring the career, what is it in this career that you think would work out for you? Or how could you strike up your own company? So I've often been marveled by the kinds of people like Bill Gates. Yeah. I'm trying to think of all these people who actually went to college. Mark Zuckerberg, they went to college,
right.
But something in that environment had them thinking deep enough to come up with their own thing.
Right.
And so that's why I say education to me and employment go hand in hand, because there are a lot of times when you can go to college, you can go to school, and just being in an environment, a thinking environment, can cause you to strike up some wonderful ideas that can ultimately become your purpose, your calling, and your moneymaker, if I can just say that. So I think those two go hand in hand. But of course, I would just put God first, because there's no way I'd be where I am today without him.
Yeah. And I think to your point, earlier you were talking about what you were sold in regard to going to college and things. I think that, and I'll say it as a person of color, but I don't think it's exclusive to people of color. That unfortunately we're not taught how to use our tools. Like you said, that going to school is a tool. But I don't think people see it as that. I don't think we see money as a tool. We think get a bunch of money or get a bunch of time in school, but you don't use it as an effective tool to further your dream or to further your passions. Yeah, and to your point with Mark Zuckerberg and even Bill Gates, they use their time in school to say that I shouldn't be here anymore or I should continue. So I
found out what I needed from this. I'm good.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't. They go to school and they don't. They're looking to get is their degree at the end, which is fantastic and it's good.
Right.
But if you haven't gained, like you said, that secondary set of notes, if you haven't gained the wisdom from that, I think you'll find yourself still searching even when you find employment. So
once you get the degree, you're still wondering like, okay, now what? What am I doing with this?
Right. And I think I haven't heard of many professors doing that, so whoever the fortunate students are in Dr. Johnson's class, please take that information. If you see this, if you're linked and you happen to check this out, please take the information. Please write your secondary set of notes, because it'll definitely help you to think outside the box, because it's not like school like it was in high school or wherever you come from. This is where you have the opportunity to make your thoughts materialize into a living, into a career, into a passion. So, definitely.
I just taught a class on business communication, and my students had to come up with a project for, they could research any hot topic within their career. My goal for that was for them to think about where are the needs in this career and where can I fill the gap.
Right.
I was so fortunate to have a student who is from a foreign country say to me, wow, I think I'm going to start something like Uber back in my home country.
Damn.
And he's already started thinking about, how do I set this up? How do I do this? And I'm like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about from a business communications class project.
Right. And I think it's unfortunate that, I don't know if people are taught that, but I always understood previous years, we'll say from like 1950s and even before that, I believe that the idea behind higher education was not to get a bunch of people who are clueless with degrees, but to get a bunch of free thinkers who are forward thinkers who can advance society. And I think that unfortunately we got into a position where we got a bunch of people that we're getting into these schools, in some cases under a means just to get money from student loans, and not exactly we're not advancing the people. So it's for a number of reasons. Again, that's a whole nother show. That people are handcuffed to not give the people the options, but number of reasons. But we'll visit that. I'm trying to stay on topic here. So the collective here. So our next question here. This is one that I've kind of been asking people back and forth on this month here, which again, if you've been listening to Some Roses Are Red, this is the month of communication, and the overarching theme would be saying what you need to say, effective communication. Today is the power of collective, and there has to be communication to have an effective collective, that we understand that as well here. So this question says, who would you say, and this is again from, from that same age range, 13 to 19. And I like to ask about before and now, because I like to ask that question for people who are listening, because sometimes you get into a rut where you think that your thinking process stays the same for the duration of your life, and you don't give yourself permission to branch out and change and have a free thought. So I like to ask for the youth, and then for your older age, for people who are listening, so you can see that as you grow older, you alter things sometimes, or change completely to suit your new needs. So for this one, from 13 to 19 again, who would you say was your, if there was one, your mentor or person you would go to for guidance? And that could be simple things or even the more complex issues.
Man, 13 to 19? I was so lost. I watched a lot of people because unfortunately, and I know that many people have had this experience growing up, you saw people say some things, but then they did different things.
Yep.
So when I was 13 to 19, I don't know that I went to people for advice per se, which was probably one of the reasons for my downfall, because somewhere between 13 and 19, I thought that I had learned everything there was to know about life, and who could tell me anything at that point?
Right.
How was I dumb? Anyway, I just watched a lot of people. I'm going to be honest. I watched your mom. I watched my mom and her interactions and what she did. I watched my grandfather, who I had no idea till probably in this last 2 years how much he had an impact on my life just as a child. My grandfather was more like my father growing up. But the things he said, they all come back to me now that I need them. And so I think I would say I just watched a lot of people. I think I grew up way too fast. I left home at 17 because I knew all there was to know about life, and who needed a mother at that time, of course, right? Sarcastically. Right. And so I think I just watched a lot of people, and that was people around me, and then it would be like people at a distance, like Oprah, or just people who who wanted something out of life and was willing to fight for it. Because I think when I was 17, 18, 19, I was lulled into a life of, I don't know, I was lost. I thought I knew what I thought I knew, but I didn't know anything.
Right.
But I always had something in me that, that always said there's more, there's better, and you can do better. But yeah, I don't know that I actually went to anybody to talk to them. I think mostly I just watched people and kind of took lessons from the way they lived.
Yeah, I pretty much did the same thing. Whenever the first time I asked that question, for me, I quote a lot of people. Probably most frequently would be my uncle James Tillman, who was a pastor, and it's for that same reason, because for me at least, I wasn't very extroverted. So for me, all of my examples were through kind of like osmosis. I would glean information from the people that I had in my surroundings. So much to that point, you learn when you observe people, you learn what to do and what not to do to get to where you want to be, good or bad. You learn those things. So definitely can agree with you there. If some people are fortunate enough, and I like those people that are able to go up to a person at when they're 15 and say, I want to be like you. Right. I wasn't that individual. I would find someone who had an attribute that I liked, and I would study it pretty much. So you just watch them. So yeah, definitely here. And of course, like I said, 2 sides to every one of those questions. So same question, but we're going from 18 years old to today, and that question was, who would you say who was your mentor or a person that you would go to for guidance? Or we won't even say guidance. Who was your sounding board now? As you get older, I find that it's less about guidance and it's more about reason. So who you're sounding, who you're for the
who's my sounding board?
Yeah.
So I'm out there on a limb. I've taken the road less traveled.
Okay.
And because I've taken the road less traveled, and I hate to get figurative and all wild with this one, but because I've taken the road less traveled, there aren't a lot of people who are on this journey with me.
Yep.
As a result, how do I say this? I don't know. Other than like day-to-day life, I don't have a person in my life right now, which is one of those things I'm seeking, but there is no person in my life who is further down the road than me on necessarily the path that I'm taking. Right. So, but let me say this, there are people in different areas who are able to give me advice about different things. Yeah. So when it comes to, and please don't take this the wrong way, because there are lots of questions in my head, but finding the person who can answer those questions, who has the experience to answer those questions, who understands where I am, is sometimes hard for me to find.
Yeah.
When I find, let's say, for example, at the college, when I find that I'm having some challenges as an instructor, then I found a dean who I respect, who I can go to. If I'm having some challenges as a mom, I might go to my sisters and talk to them, or having challenges as a woman, maybe I can go to my sisters and talk to them. But right now, in the place that I am in my life, and good or bad, talk about me if you want, God is my source. I talk to him about everything, and he answers every time. Mm-hmm. He answers every time in a way that is undeniably him. And sometimes I look crazy because I find myself laughing because he's answering, and nobody understands what I'm going through.
Right. Okay, now to that point here. Do you, because I often think that there's that's an isolation's a bad word. There's good and there's pluses and minuses, and we'll call it sanctification. It's a better word. I like that better. Right. There's pluses and minuses about being set apart to not have those checks and balances. Do you find that not having not necessarily having that sounding board, that you're, for the lack of a better word again, that you're kind of forced to stand by your positions, that you're forced to figure it out solely, and that it actually builds you in places that you not necessarily were weak in, but places that you needed to be balanced on?
That's true. That's true. I think that because I haven't, and it's interesting because today's sermon really kind of spoke to that. Again, the Lord answering one of my questions. My kids, they have best friends. My daughters have best friends. They go, Mom, where's your best friend? Well, I don't really have this one person that I talk to every single day. But I think, and I often ask God, like, where's my best friend? He's like, I'm it. Just hold on to me. We got this.
Right.
But I just find that I don't know. Maybe I just don't fit into what some people's category of being. I think I'm a nice person, but I understand sometimes I can be too much for some people. I do realize that. I don't know. I don't know how to make myself a little less, but I'm just working on me every day, trying to be the best me that I can be.
Yep.
But I guess what I want to say is. You're right. It builds me up in places where I thought I couldn't be on my own. And it's interesting that I'm here because growing up, I always thought I needed somebody.
Right.
Whether that was needing people, needing a mate, needing children to love me.
Right.
Even up through just recently in the last few years, feeling like, oh my God, I need to be surrounded by people so that I can feel the love.
Right.
And until I was left in the house alone like I am today,
Yeah.
did I realize, hey girl, I like you. I know I sound crazy. But realizing that I had to, and I've been through some really hard times all by myself.
Right.
I mean, like where I thought, where are the people who love me? And for whatever reason, they were gone. They were, and they probably had really good reasons to not be by my side at the time.
Right.
But it really, really built me up to a place where, one, I learned how to depend on God, and also how to become a little bit more self-reliant, I guess I would say.
Right.
Self-reliant, where I can trust my decisions. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I question my own decisions. I will ride in the car and talk to myself. Please, again, don't think I'm crazy. But I will sit and say to myself, is this what you really want? No, that's not what you really want. Okay, go with what you want. Those kinds of conversations.
Yep.
Are you making the right decision? Did you say the right thing? Did you listen more than you talked? A lot. I'm constantly going back and forth with myself on those kinds of things. So yeah, I think it did it built me up a little bit more. The other thing that I guess would tie back to today's sermon, which was so enlightening to me, and I think you talked about this just a little bit in the beginning, you kind of get into it, and it was sometimes when you are on a journey or on a path and you've been given a vision to do something, you have to be very careful with who you align yourself with.
Definitely.
In order to accomplish that. And I have had the experience because I've done a lot of things in my life where I just aspire to do more, be more, and have more, where sometimes you tell somebody that, and again, like you said, in the experience with meeting Barack Obama, they will say, you think you can do that? Why would you want to do that? That's too much.
Right.
And it can keep you from where you ought to be. Oh boy, if I had listened to those voices, where would I be today?
Yeah.
If I had. And so a lot of times, even if, and this is probably a fault of my own, even if I do find people that I can kind of hang out with and spend time with, I'm very slow to give them my dreams, my hopes, my visions, because I realize that I think I find myself saying it and I can't find the appropriate way to say it, but I don't let anybody, poop on my dreams.
Right.
Because if I allow them to, that can discourage me. So I don't allow for any discouragement of what I'm trying to do. If you can't cheer me on, then you don't even need to know about it.
I can definitely agree.
I think I even posted recently on my social media page. A lot of people say, I move in silence. And I laugh at that all the time because most people who are moving in silence are not moving in silence.
Right.
But what I say to people often is, stop telling people what you're going to do. Just show them what you've done.
Yeah.
Just do it. Because a lot of times, people throw out there, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and they never accomplish it because everybody has had a voice on why they shouldn't do it, why they don't need it, why it's going to be too hard. And that in your journey is something you don't need. It is something you don't, that conversation, that voice, because it will come back to you at your hardest time, and you don't need that voice.
Yep, I agree with that 100% as well.
Way off on that question.
No, that you're still right on top, because we're talking about that.
Okay.
We're talking about that internal monologue, and without understanding that you do have without understanding that you do have an internal monologue, you don't understand how it works for you, how it works against you when people speak negativity. Like, again, we said not even. It would be easy if the negative talk was coming from people who didn't mean the best from you. But sometimes the people who love you the most because of their fear.
People who love you the most.
Because of fear. And I'll attribute it to because of insecurities and because of fear. They almost put the weight of their fears and their insecurities on you. And because you love them, you carry that weight. And to your point, like you said, if your dreams are only strong enough at their infancy to support your weight, and you have all these projections and fears on you, you can't support the weight of that and your dream. So one will fail, and oftentimes it's the dream. So you're right on point with that one here. Okay, see, good people, I tell you, man. Every time I talk to somebody, I'm like, man, I should have did this years ago when I first thought about it. But hey, here we are now. Right. So, to your point,
it's okay. You're doing it now.
Right. I'm here now. So, okay. So we covered the guidance person. Who would you talk to for guidance here? Talk to from 13 to 19, and then from 19 until today. So our next question here, and you kind of talked about this a little bit here, but if you wouldn't mind just elaborating a little bit more here, what was your education journey from we'll say, I know you said on your Facebook page you went to Custer, so from the time that you set foot in Custer until the time that you graduated from your most recent university.
So, good question. I'm writing a book about my education journey.
See, I told you.
When I get it done. But I went to Custer High School. Actually, when I first started, I went to South Milwaukee High School.
Okay.
And because I had come from total African American community, I was one of those first class of kids going into South Milwaukee High School when the 220 program had started. We're going to bust the kids out of the urban community and integrate them. I went there for about a month, and it was probably the most devastating month of my life because I had never dealt with racism before.
Oh, wow.
Before that time, because I don't know, maybe I was sheltered growing up and I heard about it, but had never dealt with it. But then getting into a classroom and people really don't want to be your friend and you don't understand why, especially coming into high school, because high school is like, whoa, middle school, okay, I'm like this little girl, probably 100 pounds or less, coming into high school and just having, teacher says, pass the papers back, and the white kid in front of me is snatching papers from me. And I didn't understand why. I didn't know what was going on. But slowly you kind of get this feeling of that's them over there, kind of thing. Right. And so there were a group of us who went there. And I just remember probably the third or fourth week of school asking my mom, like, please take me out of there because I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. I just want to make friends. What's going on?
Right.
And she did it in the name of, I want you to have the best education possible, which I understand. And a lot of parents are still making that decision.
Yeah.
Because when she finally did take me out, and there were a group of us who left at the same time, and we actually all ended up at Custer, which is funny, but but what ended up happening was when I got to Custer, boy, did I see the difference in education. I left South Milwaukee High School as a ninth grader in chemistry class, Algebra 1, and all of these advanced classes. And I got to Custer and I was in physical science, high school math. I mean, it was like big change, right?
Right.
And it was another culture shock. Isn't this crazy? Because one, I was going into high school, but then I was going into high school with a bunch of kids who, I guess now I would say urban kids, urban community. So then that made me realize, like, man, my mom must have really just had me sheltered to some extent. We weren't rich by any means, but to come into school and now dude walking down the hall with his food stamp tattooed on his forehead, and I'm like, what?
Wow.
What's going on That's where I started to not fit in anymore. I don't know. Because it was like, what's really going on? I wanted the education, so I was sort of the nerd. I was sort of the awkward kid in high school. And so there's that. There's high school. I got pregnant at 17 in high school because, again, I knew a lot. I knew everything there was to know about life, of course, at 17. Right.
Of course.
So I listened to somebody who had no good intentions for me at any means. So I did graduate from high school, though. I was probably like 2-3 months pregnant when I left high school. I fell into a rut. I was surrounded by a bunch of people who had no intentions on doing anything extra with their life at that time except collecting government assistance and, just sitting around chilling. Be honest.
Letting life pass them by.
Yeah, and I realized at the time, because I had moved out of my mom's house, I was paying like $350 for rent. My government assistance was like $450. I was like, this is not the life.
Right.
I realized that I didn't need anybody dictating when I was coming, when I was going, when I was going to buy food, when I was going to pay my rent, what I was going to do. And I thought, I got to do more. And that probably was the first time I separated myself from people and said, I want something more than the people who are around me.
Right.
And so I went to school. At that time, I went to UWM. I think I went to UWM, and I went there for a little while. And then I transferred to Concordia, and that's where I got my bachelor's degree in business.
Okay.
By the time I went to Concordia and got my bachelor's degree in business, I was divorced and remarried. And I think I had 2 of the kids I had 2 kids at that time when I graduated my bachelor's degree in business. But from the time that I started school to the time I got the bachelor's degree was actually 10 years. Whoa. So it took me 10 years to get a 4-year degree.
Hey.
But I got it.
Right.
Because life circumstances, babies and marriages and just straight up life had me on a 10-year path. And so I often tell my college students, don't quit because sometimes it just takes longer.
Right.
And then after I got the bachelor's degree in business, again, with this thought in mind, I was going to be a CEO. I continued to work, but I knew that I wasn't quite doing what I was called to do in life. Like I just was still going like, Lord, what is it? Because secretary and coordinator was just not the job. It was like, there's got to be something more. And then what happened? Oh, I know. My daughter was 2nd grade at school, and she said, you should be a teacher. And I thought, CEO, teacher, they don't make enough money.
Right.
So I'm not going to do that whole teacher thing. And then the Lord said, why not? And then the Lord said, why not? And then what I did was I started asking people, what do you think about me becoming a teacher? And some people said, yeah, you should have done that all along. I saw that in you all along.
Wow.
But then other people said, nah, you got a good job. Just stick with your good job. And it was a really good paying job. But the calling just kept coming. From the moment I walked into the classroom, I knew that that's where I was supposed to be. I never told anybody to talk about not telling people what you're going to do. I took a $10,000 a year pay cut from the job that I had to become a teacher's assistant.
Wow.
But I didn't tell anybody. But I would not be where I am today had I not walked away from that thing.
Yeah.
Had I not walked away from the job that I had, because I think I was an office assistant for the city of Milwaukee or something like that at the time. But I took a $10,000 pay cut. And the reason I didn't tell anybody is because I already had 4 kids, and they were probably going to be thinking, why are you taking a $10,000 a year pay cut?
Yep.
And you have 4 kids to feed. What are you doing?
Yep.
But I was following it. And from the moment I walked into the classroom, I knew that that's where I needed to be. While I was teaching, I got the first master's degree. It was an online degree, and I got the first master's degree. It was a degree. It was a piece of paper, essentially. Because it was an online program, not a lot of interaction. There wasn't a lot I got from it. But I admired a lot of women who had gone to Alverno University, Alverno College, I should say. And so I had to inquire about Alverno College, and I got the second master's degree from Alverno College because I wanted to be an Alverno woman. If you met an Alverno woman, she's a very strong woman. And so I wanted to be that. So I got the second master's there. And then I got bored, and that's where my craziness comes in. I was working, but I needed something else, and I was bored, and I said, I would never get a PhD because all this time I thought the dissertation is so long, and nobody can write that many words, and there's no way I can do it, and that was just self-talk. And then I said, well, why not?
Yeah.
You can do this. Why not? Challenge yourself. Do it.
Yep.
And I thought, well, I'll just take like 10 years like everybody else. And once I got into it, I was like, I have to finish this because I've met so many people who had not finished PhD. And so I was like, no, I have to finish this. I have to finish this. And that became my pursuit for about 4 years. And it changed my life.
See?
Getting PhD, the process of getting the PhD changed my life. So when I say I'm writing a book, it's actually about the process of achieving a goal that only you can see.
See? And what's funny about that, I actually had that as one of the questions for a friend of mine that I interviewed, I want to say 2 months ago, that very same statement. How do you navigate achieving goals, and who do you have around you during those times when you alone are the only one that can see it or the only one who is willing to share it? So I told you, people I reach out to the people not knowing, if they'll even be available, but the people that I've had on here, profound people, yourself included, profound.
Now I gotta go back and listen to all of them.
Yeah, it's good stuff there. Good stuff, man. I tell you, the exact same questions here. So if you had to say, and this one I toyed back and forth with asking here, would you say that it's I'll ask it this way. Would you say that it's important during your academic journey that you had people in the schools or even around the schools to talk to about, your trajectory in terms of like a guidance counselor? Would that be something that people should look forward to? Or do you think that people, if it better suits them to kind of chart their own path?
I think you need a mentor. And one of the things that made getting my PhD probably harder than most is that I was doing it through an online program.
Okay.
I think when you have an opportunity to work with people who are on your same journey, that's helpful to you. Or if you have a mentor, that's also helpful, because there are a lot of things that once I got to the end of the PhD program that I was a little sad about. I mean, because once I achieved it, it was like, okay, what next? And there was nobody to say, what happens next? I mean, I literally at some point was like Googling, what do you do after you have your PhD? And then there is an important thing that happens. There are two things that happen after you get a PhD. One, you go through a depression that nobody prepares you for, because here's the crazy thing that happens. Because you were in pursuit of a PhD, it takes up pretty much all of your time. Yeah. And so now you can't go out and hang out with friends sometimes, and you can't. So you lose the people to some extent who were around you before, because they're so used to you saying you can't go that they don't invite you anymore.
Right.
So it becomes a lonely place in that instance. And then the other thing that happens is that took up all your time. And now what are you doing? I mean, it's like, what's next? What do I do? Okay, I got it now. What do I do? The third thing that happens is, and I didn't experience this until after I moved to Texas, is sometimes the letters PhD after your name says to the person who is either trying to hire you or who is trying to connect with you that you think you're smarter than me, you think you're better than me, or you think that I'm going to give you a whole lot of money. And so there's a frequency, or that smarter than me is that you're not teachable. But what people don't realize is the more knowledge you get, the more you know, the more you want to know. Yeah. The bigger the questions become, because you begin to realize that although I'm smart in this area, there's like 10,000 more questions that have come up now that I know this information.
Right.
And so I would say those three things. So if somebody is going out to get a degree, I think the best thing they can do is find somebody who has either accomplished that goal, who is ahead of them, who can mentor them.
Yeah, see? I tell you, good people. I should have talked to you years ago. I tell you. Okay, so I'll keep asking the questions, but trust and believe, if you're listening to this program, there is no way that I cannot have Dr. Johnson back for some other program in some other capacity. So, like it or not, I'll be reaching out. Right.
I need somebody to talk to.
Okay. So our next question here is, we touched on this just a hair before here, but believing that the counsel of the wise is valuable, how do you make yourself available to counsel others, or in what capacity are you available to speak to others? Or even better, the better question for that one would be, in your talks to other people, because as an educator, I know that you do talk to people. In your talks to people, what are if you had to say, we'll use life in general. What are the top 3 things that you encourage people to build themselves in to be successful? Top 3 things in terms of life in general that when you speak to people.
Life in general, certainly your relationship with God the Father. And when I say relationship, I'm talking about outside of religion.
Right.
I'm talking about you can go to church, but I'm talking about a real relationship. I'm talking about a relationship like that's my brother, that's my husband, that's my Jesus.
Right.
Kind of relationship. This is the relationship that we have, and I say that because I've never wanted to be that holy roller that was the type of person that said, you need to go to church, you need to do this, you need to do that. Only because I know the benefit of the relationship and what the relationship can do for your life that I want to tell people you need to have this relationship. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't want you need to go to church or I had a bad church experience to conjure up in your mind when I say you need a relationship. Right. So I'm talking about outside of religion. The second thing I would say is spending a little time with yourself and getting to know yourself and learning to love yourself. I will be very, very honest in saying, how old am I now? I would say it was in the last 5 years that I learned to love me, the way that I love me.
Right.
And because I learned to love me the right way, I learned to love everybody else.
Isn't that funny how that works?
The right way. The right way. Because I think, and what's the wrong way? Because I'm sure somebody would say, what's the wrong way? I think the wrong way is expecting other people to give you the love that either only God can give you or that you can give yourself.
Correct.
And here's the devastating thing that happened. I lost my mom, and that taught me that. Because the love that a mother gives a child is like no other love.
Right.
But then I think God was also trying to teach me the kind of love that I can give myself and the kind of love that he can give me is like no other love, except I was looking for that kind of love in all those other people around me.
Right.
And they couldn't feel it, and I was disappointed.
Right.
But I was looking for it from the wrong place.
Right.
And so when I began to get it from the right place, it changed everything. It changed it. And I don't even know if people realize how much it's changed me in the last 5 years, but it changed everything. It really taught me how to love people the right way and not to have unrealistic expectations of the kind of love that they should give me.
Right.
Or what they should do for me, because if you love me, this is what you'll do.
Right.
So I would just say that relationship with God and then building yourself up and learning to love yourself, because once you do that, you start realizing this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I don't want to do. And you got a very clear path after that. Yeah. I'm not saying no problems, but then you really, it gets better. It gets better.
I agree. I like to liken relationship versus religion as kind of like religion would be if you were employed at a great company. You get all the benefits of the company and you get all these great things. But relationship is like not only are you employed, but you are a relative of the CEO. It's a different experience.
I like it.
We're all employees, but my experience is going to be vastly different from yours because of that connection.
Right.
So I can definitely agree with that. And to the point that I think, and again, we'll be covering this for sure, so you don't have to, I definitely will be, in regard to placing unfair expectations on people and being disappointed in them. But it's not really a disappointment in the other person. It's more, as you learn more, you learn that disappointment was actually in you for placing an unfair weight on this person.
Wow, yeah.
That would be like going to a person on the street and say, paint me a picture of what's in my mind.
Right.
And then getting mad at the person because they can't paint that picture.
They get it wrong.
Right. So, I mean,
exactly.
You're setting people up to fail, and then you're disappointed when they fail. So it's funny.
Right.
It's an interesting thing, but I promise you, I don't even, like, at this point in the conversation, I don't even know how many shows can you invite a person back to without it being annoying.
I hope I'm giving you more shows to come up with, because the one thing that I want to be, and I don't know if this comes with age, I wanted success for myself. It had nothing to do with anybody else. But I've gotten to a place probably in the last 2 or 3 years where I want to be instrumental in helping somebody else be successful in what they do. Nothing gives me joy more than seeing somebody walking out their destiny or living their dreams or pursuing their goals. I mean, whether you're a dancer or a singer or whatever it is, it's like you can just feel it from that person.
Yep.
And if I can help in any little way,
Yeah.
I can feel.
And I think that's a mark of a fantastic person, character-wise. Like we said earlier in the program, I believe that true success is having the freedom to have opportunities. And
Right.
if you're a person who's willing to share your information, then you are an opportunity creator. And if having an opportunity is great, how much greater must it be to be able to want to give opportunities? So
Yeah. That feels good. That feels good.
fantastic. I tell you, man, good people. Okay. I know this one, like I said, you were still on point earlier before when we were talking. This next question here, what impact, if any, and we talked about it a little bit here, has the outside world had on your internal monologue in terms of achieving your goals? And actually, we talked about the importance of knowing where you want to be, and if you decide to share, which may or may not be a great idea, the importance of being steadfast in your position before you let people put their input on your position. So if you had to say, let's bring the imaginary person in and say that I am person A, I have a goal, I've made the mistake of telling people my goal early, and now they've poo-pooed on my goal. How do I right this ship? How do I correct myself to get back on track?
So here was my secret to achieving my goal, and it's something that I'm going to share in my book. But you have to feed yourself good food. And when I say that, I mean good spiritual food. Right. And I don't mean just church. I mean on a daily basis, you have to keep yourself fed. And so I think when people go out and put their dream out and somebody says you can't do it, there's so many different ways that you can re-nourish yourself. Right. One of them is, and I've done this as an exercise with my sisters, we did like a vision board weekend, is to write down every good thing that people have said about you. Just sit down and write them out. I don't care if it's as simple as your hair looks nice, or that was a really great idea, or you always have the best ideas, or you think in a way nobody else. So feeding yourself some motivational things, and if that's just writing them down and bringing them back to, and one of the ways I've done it is I put a picture up of myself, and then all around the picture I wrote wonderful things about this person, who is me, wrote all these great things for encouragement, so that when the times do get hard, you can go back and look at that and feed yourself that. And then the other thing I would say in feeding yourself good stuff is really surrounding yourself with good messages, whether that's motivational speeches, whether that's sermons, whatever that is, but feeding yourself the encouraging food so that you can be sustained to continue to try to live out that journey. You know what I mean? So again, like I said, whether it's good messages, whether it's music that you love, whatever that is that will feed you that good stuff every day. I notice that sometimes if I don't continue to feed myself that good stuff, I get like drawn out, worn out, I'm tired, I can't make it, I can't do it. And then I have to realize, wait, you haven't been feeding yourself anything good. And here I go against society. Get off of social media.
Right.
Unless you have built your social media up to be encouragement. Yep. And you can. You can pick people who are successful. You can pick people who post things that are encouraging, because I really believe that if you surround yourself, there's certain things when you're on a journey that you can't let into your spirit. Yeah. And if you begin to let bad things into your spirit, it can sometimes deplete you. Yeah. And whether that's social media or whether that's the news, sometimes you have to just, what I call it and I did this probably 6 months ago, turn off the noise. Yeah. Just turn off the noise. Sometimes, and this is a whole nother conversation, but sometimes the noise can be too much for you when you're trying to do something.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to quiet your space and quiet yourself so you can get back to the place where you're trying to go.
Right. I agree 300%. Another thing you'll notice, I use a lot of percentages. I can't help it. I said that since the very, very first podcast I did, I've been trying to limit myself, but I'm just a percent dude. I say percent because I agree with people. I'm 100%.
Right.
And the percentages don't matter. I'll give 1,000% here. They're not relevant to anything. But it's just, I agree with the people in the points that we talk about so much that I just have to throw a number out there. So forgive me. My numbers don't add up. If you've been doing the math for the show, they won't add up. So never mind that. So, okay, we did talk about the internal monologue here. Your support system, and we'll call it your support system since you spoke about them, your 4 adult children and your husband. How have they been supportive and helpful along this process?
I couldn't do it without them. I pause to say a lot of times I've separated myself from people, and so sometimes that puts me out on a journey by myself. But you realize you can't accomplish these dreams without the people around you, especially those closest to you.
Right.
And even when they can't see the vision the way you need to see it, you just have to feed it to them in a way that they will understand.
Right.
And so with my kids, some people have called us weird, and we probably will have a podcast someday. As a matter of fact, that's what my daughter said, we need a podcast.
She should.
But we come together one day per week, and we just talk.
Okay.
We talk about dreams. We talk about goals. We talk about it. We talk about everything. We talk about what's in the news. We don't always agree, but we talk. And those are the kinds of friends that I need around me. Ones that can make me rethink what I'm thinking. Those that can challenge my thinking. Because my kids do that to me. You know, they'll say, well, what did you think about it this way? Have you considered this? And then I'm also teaching them at the same time.
Right.
I've learned as a parent of adult children to never be shocked by what they say because they got their own life experiences.
Yep.
So even though I may be internally shocked by what they said, I can't show it on my face.
Right.
Because I realize it will take me out of their circle if I become like, and I hate to say it this way, they are my best friends, but if I become the mom in some of these situations, then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just sit quiet and I let them talk, and then later I'll add my 2 cents if they ask me, so what do you think? And tell them to just be respectful of my experience, because you don't have as much experience in this. Be respectful of my experience with this, whatever we're talking about. And then when it comes to my husband, he is total opposite of me. When they say opposite attract, I don't know how we got together, but we are completely opposite. But one thing he is he is one of my greatest supporters. And I never forget that it takes a strong man to be with a strong woman like me.
Very true.
Because I think to some people, I can be, like I said, very intimidating. Not that I'm trying to intimidate. I'm just over here trying to live my life.
Right.
But to some people, I can be intimidating. But for him, he is the quiet when I'm talking too much. He is the voice of reason when I'm going off the handle.
Right.
So in those ways, I've had that support. Don't get me wrong. There have been times when I've called on my children or I've called on my husband. And as I said earlier, that they weren't there for me. It took a shift in my understanding to not have those unrealistic expectations of them.
Right.
For example, starting the tutoring business was my dream. It was my goal. So when I asked them to do something for the tutoring business, I always have to remember they're doing it as a favor to me, because this wasn't exactly what they set out to do. It's what I set out to do.
Right.
But they jump in. But it also took some teaching on my part for them to understand that in going into business and me having this business, it is mine, but ultimately it's something that they can inherit. And in some ways, it will benefit them as well. So they should feel a little bit of obligation to assist with it, because ultimately it becomes an inheritance.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, see, yeah, I tell you, man, I'm excited. Every new person that I speak with, even like I said, I've known everybody that I've talked to for a number of years, but just getting to ask these people these questions, I'm excited. I'm like, man, these are like brand new people.
You've got great questions.
Oh, thank you so very much. Like,
you make us think.
That's because it's what I do. Because I don't like the term introvert. I'll say introvert, but I think that we are all what we need to be for the situations. I think we're introverts when we need to be. We're extroverts when we need to have things accomplished. We are what we need to make this walk of life more doable. So, but yeah, I think I like to ask questions because I really do truly want to know what people are living in this life. I'm living my life, but it's my one world view. I'd like to know what other people's world views are. So, right. You know, so okay. Gotcha. We're down here further on the list here. I think we have, what do we got left? I think we have about 2 questions left. So this one will be the second to the last question here. Even we did this one. Okay. Oh, we totally did that one. Okay. So we kind of covered all of the questions. Actually, I'm looking at the last 2 questions, and I'm like, well, we hit those a little bit earlier on. So that is absolutely awesome here. So let me see. I did have more questions. I know we were speaking about, and I'll have another cast. I know because I was writing down the loose outline earlier today. In regard to, we'll say thinking outside of the box, not just in terms of education, but in religion. What was and I know you said a number of things that happened with the passing of your mom and just life experiences. What were some of the things that helped you think outside of the box in regard to pushing toward your goals? What were some of the things that facilitated that, and what were some of the things that you learned through that process?
Push me towards my goals. I think I was listening to somebody, and maybe my daughter reiterated this. When you're running towards a goal, you are sometimes running from something and faster than you're running to something.
Yeah.
I think, my sheer motivation towards any of my goals, the things I've accomplished, even moving to Texas, has been in search of better for me.
Yeah.
But I also realized, going back to what I said today on Facebook, every time I've stepped outside of the comfort zone, amazing things have happened.
Okay.
And so sometimes I'm going to something that I don't know exists yet, but I feel the calling and I feel the pulling of me to that direction.
Right.
So, for example, I'm one of my only siblings who moved to Texas.
Yeah.
I'm one of the only one on my mom's side of the family, other than my cousin, that left Milwaukee and decided, it wasn't for me anymore. But I felt, as much as I was running from, and Milwaukee is a great place, there are just some really bad people who live there, messing it up for all the good people who live there. Don't get me wrong. But I knew it wasn't the place where I was going to continue to be successful professionally. And I knew that the calling on me was to someplace else. And before I decided on Texas, the world was my oyster. And then somebody said, well, you need to narrow that down because we got to make some plans here.
Right.
And so I think it was that it's just that it's all I can say is it's God, because a lot of times people ask me, well, why did you move to Texas? Why did you pick Texas? I don't know. It was just where I was called to, because when I explored all the other places, I kept thinking, but what's happening in Texas? But what's happening in Texas? And why would I come here? But it's that pull to be more and to do more. I saw success here. I saw growth here when I visited, and I wanted to be a part of growth and success in a way that means to me. You know what I mean? I just wanted more. And where I was, I felt like I was kind of, I don't want to say stunted, but I was kind of stuck. I had kind of moved around in the circles that I was in for a long time. And it was time to push out and be more and to do more and to get into that uncomfortable, unfamiliar place. Now, I'm a planner, so I planned it out 2 years in advance. I had it all planned out. But it didn't work out like that at all. It didn't work out like that at all, but that was a lesson for me. Uh-huh. It was a lesson for me to realize that some things are not going to work out the way you expect them to, and you can't plan out A, B, C, D, E, F, G and expect God to work in that plan. You got to work with his plan.
Right.
And so I packed up the scripture, Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good. And I carry that on my back everywhere I go. So if the ceiling falls in the learning center, all things are going to work together for my good.
Right.
If I don't have a job right now and I'm still looking for a job and nobody's calling me, all things are going to work together for my good. If we move to Texas and we can't find a house or an apartment for 2 or 3 weeks, all things are going to work together for my good. So it was that thing. And then I think that's the thing that kind of sustains me right now. It's all going to work together, and learning how to, because I'm a control freak. It requires a little bit of control freakness to get to where I am today.
Right.
But it was letting go of all that control and allowing God to take control and following his lead. With the understanding that he's equipped me to do whatever it is he wants me to do, and just going with it and not freaking out about things going off the end if it doesn't work out the way I thought it was supposed to.
Right.
Just roll with it. Just roll with it.
Right.
I haven't even hit on the fact that I've been sick a couple different times that could have taken me completely out of the game.
Oh, wow.
Back in 2015, and then this same thing came back to me again this last year. Talk about trying to get out of the bed when you can barely sit up straight. But something keeps pulling on me. And I'm going to tell you something. One little kid at the tutoring center going, I'm doing so much better in school now that I come here. Or one little kid looking at me and smiling and going, this is better than the last place I went to. Or one parent sitting down in front of me and saying, I've been looking for you for 9 years.
Wow.
It changes. That's it. That's all I need.
Right.
I would love $1 million. But if a mother and father sit in front of me and go, we've been from place to place to place to place, but now that I'm talking to you, I've been looking for you for 9 years. I'm looking for a place my kids can stay for the rest of their school life. That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. See? Redefining success. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
see, man, I tell you, the reason, like, I know I keep saying this, I know I keep saying the percentages, and I know I keep talking about the people that I have on the show. I'm excited to hear that the people that I like are likable for even more reasons than the small reasons that I like them. And it's phenomenal because I think a lot of times, and I talk to Valencia, my wife, a lot of times about different things, and she'll ask me about people. And we can only report about people in the way that we know them. So if we know this person as this, I can only say this person is cool, but I only know them like this. So this podcast, Some Roses Are Red, I've gotten a chance to know people on a much broader plane, and I gotta say that I like these people even more now. So you're definitely on the list of people that I like even more. So man, I tell you, good people.
The feelings are mutual. The feelings are mutual.
See, good people. So, I mean, that was the last question that I had written here on the book here. But if you don't mind, because we do have time at the end, and I usually let people talk about the things they have going on in their life. They have any, businesses that they're pushing or anything, but I'd like to hear more about people. If you happen to be in the Fort Worth area or in the Texas area in general, I think it's a good push. I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the Learning Center and what you do there.
Okay, the Learning Center. Okay, so the business is a franchise, and it's crazy how it came about. I applied to over 200 full-time jobs when I moved to Texas. Over 200. I can prove this with Indeed.com.
Wow.
And I did not get one.
Wow.
I've interviewed for some. I did not get one. And I was like, Lord, what are you doing? I have bills to pay. I've sold everything. I moved to Texas. I thought you called me here. What are you doing?
Right.
And I said, that ain't it, Alice. That ain't it. And so it's crazy because that's just the way that the Lord has to do several things in the same way for me to get it sometimes. Sometimes you don't get it. Right. You got to show you this way and this way and this way. They would not call me back. And I wasn't sure if it was because I had the PhD on there and they didn't want to pay me much. I did go to a job interview and get that feeling of I thought I was better than them because I had the PhD, but I tried to crush that, but they didn't get it. And being brown skinned and having the PhD sometimes can just be intimidating. I realize that too. I'm just going to be honest. It just happened. just because I've experienced people not even saying good morning to me when I'm the leader of the conversation, but whatever. So while I was in the process of looking for a full-time job, one of the people who he's pretty high up, I don't know if he's a partner in the franchise or what, reached out to me on LinkedIn, which is kind of weird because every time I say that to somebody, they're like, usually you call the franchise and say, I'd like to open a franchise. Right. No, he reached out to me and he said, have you ever been interested in opening a learning center? And I thought, this must be a joke. Yeah. So over a couple of weeks, I sort of just researched it. And then I came to, they're based out of Illinois, and I went to Illinois and checked it out with them and talked to them about the center. It is, talk about going outside of your borders. I'm going to be honest. I've never, in all of my ideas of success, never considered working with nationalities other than Black people and white people. It's my experience.
Right.
The tutoring culture is mostly Asian, Indian, African. These are not. They tend to be people who are foreign. The parents are typically foreign to the United States.
Okay.
They have an appreciation for the education that you can get. And education in many cases for them, and this is just what I've been taught, is number one. Yeah. It is very important. School is one thing, but tutoring is something that we just do.
Wow.
So in getting into that circle and talking to them, at first you're kind of nervous, you're kind of scared, you don't want to invest this money, are you going to lose the money? I don't know these people, is this really going to pan out? Yeah. The more people I talked to, and they were very open. Here's the contract. You can go talk to anybody else who owns a franchise. They're willing to talk to you. They're willing to help you. And then I just said, Lord, if you brought it to me, let's do it. Right. Yeah. And so I've been doing it. And although I have a bachelor's degree in business, this first year in business has been a whole learning experience.
Right.
Because first, I'm an educator and not a salesperson. But in this business, of course, you got to sell in order to make money.
Yep.
So I've had to learn how to step out of that educator background and also step into the sales background, not to be, the tricky salesperson, but to think in business in a forward motion, because you got to be thinking much further ahead than where you are right now in order to sustain your business. Yeah. So you can't be thinking about, okay, today we're doing good, today we're making money, but you got to be thinking about, okay, in June, what are we going to do to increase our sales? And in, December, what are we going to do to increase our sales in order to continue to be sustainable and make it something more.
Right.
The business itself, since the moment I walked into it, has been self-sufficient. It is taking care of itself. It's not yet producing an income per se for me. Mm-hmm. But I remember from business school, most times it takes 3 to 5 years for a business to really sustain itself. Yeah. To become profitable. And so I'm in that year 2. I've taken all my lessons from year 1 and I'm building on those. My first year, it was running out to get customers, but this year I've been blessed to have more customers call me every week. I heard about you. I want my kids in your center, or hey, my neighbor's kids go here, or my kids from the school go here. And so it's starting to increase in that way. But in the same turn, I'm having sleepless nights, or not sleepless nights, but I'm also working on my next steps.
Yep.
So I'm working on additional curriculum. I'm almost done with summer and it's only February, but I'm thinking about the next steps. What am I going to do to expand it? So essentially right now what I have is an after school tutoring center where kids come on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and we tutor them in math and English and abacus. We teach them how to use an abacus tool to enhance their brain thinking. But we sit down with them, 3 to 5 kids at a table at a time, and we tutor them in math and English. Okay. Many of my students are on or above grade level, so we're just helping them to be even smarter. Okay. And then I do have students that I've been challenged with either are below grade level or have some special needs, autism, Asperger's, attention deficit disorder, whatever that is. I'm always honest with parents that I'm not a special needs tutoring center.
Right.
We just give them our love. We just give them our love and we give them the best that we have. And I think that is what sells my business. And it's realizing that I am what sells my business and that service is what sells the business. is what's going to save me a lot of money that I wasted last year on trying to sell the business.
Right.
And I've often told people that my service sells the business instead of me being that hard fast, because I've never wanted to be intimidated by, that salesperson. Nobody wants that, that push. You got this, you got that. And I'm always honest with parents. If you want to take a break, you want to leave me, the only thing I ask you to do is tell me if there's a bad experience so that I can fix that thing. Other than that, if you got to take a break, you want to leave me. But many times, even from first year to second year, I've had kids who left and either are coming back or have come back already. So they come back and forth.
See, that's a win.
So I think my next goal is to possibly open up another location.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I support you 100%. That's the learning center.
That, so
Right.
I'm nervous.
Yeah. Okay. See, good people. So if you are in the are they just based in Texas or in the West, or are they nationwide?
They are all over the United States and in Jordan. It's called Best Brains Learning Center.
Okay. So if you're looking for tutoring, or if you don't know you're looking for tutoring for your child, or even for yourself, if you want to catch a little education on the side, you said it's called Best Brains.
Best Brains.
Best Brains. So you should look for them online, or if you're not sure what I said, they said Best Brains, you can look for Dr. Alice Johnson on Facebook, and I'm pretty sure if you send her a message on her Facebook page, what was the name of that school, she'll be more than happy to give you more information about the school and about what they do and how they can help your child to be at, above, or even beyond grade level in whatever their specific subject would be. And like, if you heard the program here, so you know that she's more than qualified to educate your child on the curriculum, but even beyond that, as a good person, she can definitely trust that your child will be in good hands, not just academically, but as from a nurturing standpoint. Good people do good things for good people. So I have no problem. Anyone who's listening to this program now or whenever you hear this program, definitely check it out. It's a good program. Even if you don't have kids who are school age, check it out for someone you may know. You may be able to pass the information down the road here. So I thank you again, Dr. Alice Johnson, for indulging me, as I said with everybody to it, for indulging me with a little part of a piece of a dream that I had that I thought would be interesting to do. And to this point, I am very, 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 very thankful that I did take the step out here. So I'm very I'm proud of you. Thank you. I'm very happy that that I reached out and that you were able to have time in your schedule to talk with me. And unless you have anything else, that's all the questions I have, and that's.
I think I talked too long.
No, you're good. You're good. So I thank you very much, and that pretty much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that pretty much has been the show. So we'll catch you all next time. Again, this is Some Roses Are Red.
Hi, this is John for Some Roses Are Red. Every first and third Monday of the month from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., we're live on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Join us as we explore a new topic each show, and feel free to chat with us live on either platform as we explore the many facets of interpersonal relationships and how to navigate those interactions while keeping those relationships intact. Again, at Some Roses Are Red Live every first and third Monday at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Hope we talk to you soon.